What's up, everybody? It's your boy Deshaun here on Average Joe Sports, flashing the dubs. Why? Because it was an epic 2 games for the Dogs. Actually, more like an epic 4 games for the Dogs because the ladies got it done too. They beat Oregon State on Tuesday. The Dogs beat Northwestern and Oregon as well over the course of their NIT runs. The men are heading over to New York to play in the semifinal round. From what I believe remember correctly is the winner of the Minnesota Middle Tennessee State game. That's what I remember. But if that's not the case, anyway, they're going on to the semifinals, and that's the important part. That's the first half of my epic sports weekend. Normally, I talk about that stuff at the end, but because it was so awesome and so impromptu, I had to talk about it. The other part of my epic sports weekend was the 3-1 win for the Sounders over Toronto. That was a really, really good game, too. David Estrada with the hat trick on opening night. The opening night from a weather standpoint out here was really, really weird because it snowed in the morning, and I was kind of upset about that. I was like, "You are not ruining my St. Patty's Day snow. I will punch you in the face because you're not excited." But it turned out to be a great day for soccer, and I had a great time. Had a couple pints of Guinness, some Jameson, and then I kind of blacked out for the rest of the night. I'm just kidding. No, but not about the Jameson and the Guinness, though. I didn't black out, though. I had the beer munchies, though. It was really awesome. Anyway, that's another story for another time, and we can talk about that later. However, again, the men are moving on to the semifinals of the men's NIT. The women are moving on to the quarterfinals. The women do a 64-team bracket in the women's NIT, whereas the men don't. So, again, things are always different, but we appreciate it. So, go Dogs over the long run. I'm very, very proud to see both teams succeeding. Granted, it's not the big dance, it's the smaller dance, which is still cool. So, again, we're playing postseason ball, we're playing out there, we're getting a championship. So, that's a good thing. The men are growing very, very well as a team, and I think that's great because what I saw on Tuesday was, they're still a young team, but at the same time, they've grown and they've matured, and you can actually see it paying dividends out on the court. So, Romar, you're doing great things with the kids. Tony Roden, one more year. I'm sure he probably will because he's got a lot to prove yet. So, here's hoping. Fingers crossed. On to more pressing matters. As we all know, it's free agency. It's, the time of the year right before the draft where you kind of get those free agency moves and seeing where people are going. The winner in the Matt Flynn sweepstakes is the Seattle Seahawks. Signed into a 3-year, $26 million deal with $10 million of that $26 million guaranteed. It's an okay deal. It was cheap, but it also states that, hey, we like you for right now, and within 3 years, if you do a really, really good job and you prove to us that you're the man and you make great playoff runs, we're going to keep you and we're going to sign you to a longer contract. However, if we find somebody else who is just as good, if not better, and can play right now, we're going to get rid of you. Plain and simple. So, I mean, again, it's like the NFL's version of dating in high school. You're hot, I'm hot, we should date. But if I find somebody hotter than you or you find somebody hotter than me, we going to get ours. And it's okay because it's young puppy love. It's awesome. So that's kind of where it's at right now. To me, that's what that particular contract states. I have my reservations as a whole about Matt Flynn, basically based on the man's only had 2 decent starts. He had a start in 2010 against New England. He was 24 of 37 for 251 yards and 3 interceptions in a loss to the New England Patriots. I mean, again, ultimately, it's really not a bad game. I mean, it's actually pretty par for the course when you think about it. But his other start was the most recent one and the one that really put Matt Flynn on the map. And now is the game against a fledgling Detroit team who wasn't going to make the playoffs. I mean, let's just call it like it is. He was 31 of 44. I put 31 of 24 on my stats. I don't remember that. But he was 31 of 44 for 480 yards and 2 interceptions with 6 touchdowns as well. So, again, 480 yards, 6 touchdowns. and 2 interceptions is it's really not a bad game. Again, also standard par for the course game. Again, he also had the starting O-line of the Green Bay Packers. The O-line and the majority of the receivers did not take any time off. So it was just Aaron Rodgers who took a breather going into the playoffs. And that's fine, and again, he showed off his goods. He made himself available to the public, and this is what he gets. It's his chance to be the man. Again, it's hard for me to base something like this on 2 starts. This isn't like Matt Castle where he had the entire season to prove what he was worth, and he won his fair share of games, and his team didn't go to the playoffs. Basically, based on the fact that the AFC West was so terrible that a winning percentage of just over 500 got the division champ into the playoffs, so they wound up having to sit out. So again, loophole rule. That's just the way it works. But he had the whole season. Therefore, teams had a bigger barometer to judge, his potential. He went to Kansas City. He did okay. It's kind of proven to just be kind of a flash in the pan. But who knows what happens out there in Kansas City? When they get a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator. So that being said, it's a good deal, but at the same time, I feel it's a deal that's only for now. So that's kind of where I'm at with the whole Seahawks thing. But on to the big fish, or the elephant in the living room. Peyton Manning going to Denver for $96 million for 5 years. $58 million of that $96 million is guaranteed. What does that mean for Tim Tebow? Get out of the Mile High City. You got to go. Where are you going? To New York to play for the Jets. That's right. He got picked up. The Jets. I almost said Giants. I apologize to my Giant fans out there. The Jets gave up a fourth and a sixth round draft pick to pick up Tim Tebow. So going back to Denver, I feel bad for Tim Tebow for the simple fact that, in my opinion, he proved that he earned the right to start in Denver. Again, I don't like the Broncos. I don't, but at the same time, I also respect the fact that when you have a player who does well, you should honor him that much. Or at least say, hey, you're going to challenge for the starting position. Again, David versus Goliath, you're not going to start over Peyton Manning, plain and simple. If Peyton Manning can play, says he can play, he's going to play, plain and simple. So it sucks that, this had to happen to him, but I think ultimately in the long run for Tim Tebow, it's going to be what's best for him. He's probably still going to be a backup for the Jets, but I think he'll have time to develop more as a quarterback, and that's something that he needs to do. He doesn't have to throw with with a QBR rating of 110. No. He really only needs like a 74, 75 QBR. Which is something that he can do, which is something that Michael Vick does. Michael Vick doesn't throw a lot of passes. He does a lot on his feet. He's able to make plays out of nothing, and that's the ability that he has. But Michael Vick throws enough and completes enough passes to where defenses have to defend both his running ability and his passing ability. And if Tim Tebow can get to that point, he's going to be dangerous. And the good news is he's in the AFC. He's still in the AFC. So he's going to face the AFC West at least once every 4 or 5 years. So he's got that going for him, which is nice. So he can take his chance and stick it to John Elway, who was kind of being kind of a douche-waffle on this one. He didn't like Tim Tebow. Again, Tim Tebow's not his guy. So, he has the right to say, hey, we're going to drop you. But he should have just said that at the end of the season. Hey, if we can get a better quarterback, we're going to. Tim Tebow is not my starter of the future. He's not my franchise quarterback. If he had just came out and said it, I would respect that a whole lot more from John Elway. But Elway feels that he's got his guy in Peyton Manning. We'll see how Peyton Manning handles being outside in the cold, in Mile High, playing out in that slightly thinner air. I think Peyton Manning might have a little bit more trouble because, again, he's been playing in a controlled environment for the majority of his career. Actually, for the vast majority of his career, his entire career. So he's going to be outside having to deal with the elements. And last I checked, especially in the playoffs, he doesn't do so hot when it's cold outside. You know what I just said? He doesn't do so hot when it's cold outside. Didn't even intend to do that, but it's funny to me. But he doesn't do all that well when it's cold outside. So it'll be interesting to see how he fares in November, December, early January, and going into the playoffs. Because, again, ball's going to feel a lot harder. You know, because it's cold and it's that thin air, the ball might be feeling just a slight bit heavier than normal. You know, he might not be able to get a grip on the ball, but if he's got home field advantage throughout the playoffs, for example, he's going to have to deal with his one real weakness, and that's playing out in the elements. So we'll see what happens there. Right now, Denver is the odds-on favorite to win the AFC West. And that depresses me because I really thought that, and I still do think it, because, I mean, right now we're just prognosticating going into the season because preseason hasn't even started yet. But I feel that Denver is the best. I think that the Raiders have a chance to, you know, battle for a wild card spot, which I think wouldn't be a half bad idea either, getting to the playoffs and being better than 8-8, but we can talk about that later. But it's terrible news for the AFC West because now somebody has Peyton Manning. So we'll see what happens. With the Jets, what does that mean for Mark Sanchez? Basically, Mark Sanchez better be on his guard. He's going to have to play the perfect game every game. I mean, right now I could say for this season that he's going to be the man in New York, but if he has a subpar season and flames out in the playoffs, like he tends to be doing as of late, people are going to be shouting out Tim Tebow. And that's who they're going to want. This Tim Tebow media circus and hype train is not stopping. It's definitely not going to stop in New York. It's going to go on overdrive. It's going to be Jeremy Lin times 40,000 is basically what it's going to be. Because there's so much press, there's so many tabloid papers out there in New York. It is a media town. So all eyes are going to be on Tim Tebow and the Jets for the rest of the season. Basically from today on. So, you know, good luck out there, Tim Tebow. I would have taken Jacksonville, slightly smaller market, to just kind of get my feet back into it. But, you know, bigger market, bigger money is always good. Lastly, but not leastly, we're going to talk a little bit about Roger Goodell, the bounty hunter. Basically, we've all heard about the scandal about bounties being placed on certain players in the New Orleans Saints organization. Sean Payton got suspended for 1 year without pay, and his former defensive coordinator, Greg Williams, has been suspended indefinitely for the exact same thing. Basically, being suspended indefinitely is basically saying we're kicking you out of the league, but we're not banning you. We're just going to keep you away from the NFL for as long as we see fit. He can go and be a defensive coordinator in college. You know, he can do that, definitely. You know, I'm sure a college football franchise, I guess you can call them franchises, but a college football team will be willing to take him because he's got a professional pedigree already, and he's got a lot to teach college athletes, plain and simple. So his opportunities and his options are still out there. But the thing on bounties is really this. It's going to happen whether you want it to or not, whether you talk about it or not. So, I mean, you got to treat it like Fight Club from here on out. The first rule about Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club, plain and simple. You know, so don't talk about placing bounties on certain players to get them out of the game or for best sack. Just don't talk about it, period. You know, have your chance outside of practice to say, hey, you know, $3,000 for the person who takes out Aaron Rodgers or has the best hit on Aaron Rodgers. So you talk about that, you know, in the confines of your car or in the confines of your home. Just don't talk about it in public so that people don't find out. So, again, bounties are going to happen. Big hits are still going to happen. Concussions are going to be made. Injuries are going to be had. That's what football is. Football is a violent sport. And if you don't like it, go play two-hand touch out back with your friends. Plain and simple. So, that's it for the sports vlog for today. Catch you guys later when there's some more big news. Peace out.